In August 2019, a woman in Massachusetts opened a package. Inside, live spiders. A bloody pig mask. A book called Surviving the Loss of a Spouse. Her husband wasn't dead, but someone wanted her to think he would be. The packages kept coming for weeks. This wasn't a stalker in her basement. It was a Fortune 500 company with a $30 billion market cap. The people behind this worked in the C-suite. Meet Inna and David Steiner, a middle-aged couple from Natick, Massachusetts. They run a tiny newsletter called EcommerceBytes. They write about shipping rates, seller fees, the kind of thing you just scroll past. They are, by every definition, the little guys. But 3,000 miles away, eBay executives were paying attention. The company was under pressure. 2019 was a bad year for eBay. Amazon was eating them alive. Investors were furious. The stock was flat. Then, on August 1st, Inna posts an article criticizing the CEO's salary. Inside eBay, someone starts typing, "I want to see ashes. Whatever it takes." Another text read, "If you're ever going to take her down, now is the time." This wasn't a PR strategy. This was a harassment strategy. The security team was brought in, led by James Barr, Director of Security, ex-CIA, ex-police. He ran eBay's private intelligence unit. That's right, they had a private intelligence unit. And what happened next was criminal. Phase 1, digital assault. Barr's team creates fake accounts, anonymous, untraceable. They flood the Steiners with messages. "We are watching you." Then, their email bomb. They sign David up for hundreds of newsletters. The Communist Party, the Satanic Temple, adult websites. Hundreds of emails an hour, drowning out their real business. But digital wasn't enough. They wanted to touch the real world. They ordered a preserved fetal pig. When the shop called to confirm, David realized this wasn't spam. Then a book arrived, Surviving the Loss of a Spouse. It wasn't a gift, it was a threat. But here's where it gets strategic. They started sending pornography to the neighbors, addressed to David. The goal wasn't just fear, it was isolation. Turn the whole town against them. Inna stopped sleeping. David started carrying a weapon. They installed cameras, changed their routines, all because they wrote about shipping fees. So why do any of this? Why spiders? Why a bloody mask? Because terror was only step 1. It's called the White Knight, straight out of intelligence playbooks. The plan? First, terrorize them. Anonymous, relentless. Break them down. Then, eBay security team swoops in. "We heard you're being harassed. We can help." The victims, they trust their saviors, and out of gratitude, they stop writing negative articles. That was the plan. But they needed to sell it. So James Barr flew to Boston. He brought his close protection team. They rented 2 SUVs and they drove to Natick. They parked down the street and they watched. They logged when the Steiners ate, when they slept, when they left. Blur planned what was called a black bag operation. Break into the garage, plant a GPS tracker. They were hours away from doing it, but they made one mistake. David was watching too. Late August. David spots the van. It's been parked there all day. He doesn't hide. He gets in his car, drives right past them. He gets the plate. He calls Natick Police. They run the plate. Now they're expecting a stolen car, maybe a local creep. The plate comes back to a corporate rental account. eBay Incorporated. The police are stunned. Why is a $30 billion company renting a getaway van? The FBI gets involved. They raid eBay's servers. They find everything. The texts, the plan, everything. The spies were caught because they rented the car in their own company's name. So, justice? James Barr got 57 months in federal prison. 6 eBay employees were convicted, careers destroyed, and the company, a $3 million fine. For eBay, that's about 6 hours of revenue. It's a rounding error. The CEO, Devin Wenning, was never charged. He denied any knowledge of the harassment. But he resigned with a $57 million exit package. The victims, they testified in court, but the executives, they just moved on. eBay, it's still a giant, still worth billions. But for a few weeks, in 2019, the mask slipped. And 6 employees went to prison for what they did to 2 bloggers. Drop a comment. What would you do if a $30 billion company came after you? If you want to know how corporations get away with things like this, please subscribe. The next video will be juicy. I will see you there.